We are all creative. We are all innovative. Can you please join with me in thanking Rhonda Taha for her inspiring presentation on the importance of creating a culture of innovation. Thank you, Rhonda.
Hello.
So on to the next inspiring speaker. To get success, we need to pass through failures. Let us welcome your host, who's been up here earlier today, who is a best-selling author and a global conference speaker on executive presence. Rohit Bassi, also known as ROI. Welcome him back on the stage. He's going to share his phenomenal view on celebrating failure and thus accelerating growth. Please join me in welcoming Rohit Bassi.
Hands up. Okay, so literally everyone. And when you look at children, and especially when I used to look at my nephew and niece, now they're entering into their teenage life, they cannot distinguish between failure and success. I remember some incidences with me where my nephew and my niece, they looked up at me and they said, "Uncle, why do people get upset? Why do they get upset when they're not able to do something?" I looked at them and I said, it's because they feel failure. So they look at me and they say, failure? And this was when they were young. They were not conditioned or programmed into thinking about failure. And they said, what does that mean? And that's why I started looking at this, can we really celebrate failure? The truth is, everyone in this room, everyone across the globe, doesn't matter who it is always, everyone is looking for success. Let's take an extreme example. Serial killer. He or she would be looking for their success in what they're doing. Let's take another example where you've got someone who's doing charitable work. They want success in that so they can assist and help people. And when it comes to business, we are looking for success in terms of ROI, return on investment. Now, return on investment is usually looked at as that figure which you get. But many people forget return on investment is also the sweat and the blood that you've put into the business. So it's just not a number, it's quite a lot of things, this return of investment. And when we're not able to get our success, we go into certain modes. And those modes we may not show to other people, but this tends to be your regret, your resentment, or the rejections you've had. So when you have these rejections, these resentments, these regrets, you go down the vicious circle of feeling like a bigger failure. We get attached to it so much. Now, 2004 was a very important year for me. That was the year I thought I was the biggest failure, and it was my biggest failure which had happened during that year. Because I managed to destroy the most precious relationship to me. It was through my sabotaging thoughts, my actions, and my feelings. Resentment, regret, rejection, all of that. And I didn't know what to do. A miracle happened for me. I came across the book, The Art of Happiness. Now, the miracle happened because I was in a bookstore. I don't know why I was in the bookstore, but I just entered in a bookstore and I came across this book. And when you read the book, the first thing that it says in that book is everyone is seeking happiness in one way or the other. And in order to seek that happiness, you need to have that sweetest emotion in you, which you can give yourself and you can give to another person, and that is love. It's the sweetest emotion existing. But in order to get that love, you need to come into a state of compassion. Until you're not into that state of compassion, getting that sweetest emotion of love is extremely tough, and seeking happiness is even tougher. And this is what makes you start seeing, hey, I'm not really a failure. This is a learning for me. But you need to start with compassion. Now, I talk about compassion for a simple reason. If you look at the animal kingdom, compassion exists across the animal kingdom. Look at the mighty elephant. The mighty elephant, when an elephant dies, the other elephants gather around the elephant and they cry for that elephant. In fact, what also happens is, as the months go, as the years go, these elephants go and visit the bones of that departed elephant. If that's not compassion, I'm not sure what is compassion then. The lovely dog. So back in the UK, I used to have a beautiful dog. His name was Dodgy. He was not dodgy in any way whatsoever, but we called him Dodgy. And in those times when I used to feel low, sad, or some people term it as depression or depressed, he'd come up to me, touch me with his paws, with his head, and I look at him and you could see he's communicating with you, saying through that language of his, I'm here for you. To me, that is compassion. Let's look at another animal, or what people call them rodents, rats. Usually associate them as vermins, yuck. In 1958, an experiment was done by scientists on rats, and they discovered something very strange. They wanted to see if they were compassionate, and behold, they discovered they were compassionate. The scientists dubbed these rats as compassionate rodents. So we've got that happening across the animal kingdom. But it happens with humans as well. Martin Luther King. You've got Nelson Mandela. And there is Baba Guru Nanak Ji from India, a spiritual leader. All worked through compassion. They had adversities in life, but they worked through compassion. So they never saw things as failure. And the challenge which we face, and many of us face, is we have this apathy towards compassion. We think it's soft, it's gooey, it's not required. Well, the reason why that is because we're unwilling to unmask those regrets, those resentments, and those rejections which we've had in life, or when it comes to business as well. And this is why, the reason being is because the brain and the heart are not getting connected. The brain is very important, extremely, extremely important. And to do analysis, very, very important. But look at your own life and you will see the heart. It is the heart which drives the passion. And without this, things are very tough. So this needs to be connected. And when they're connected, amazing things happen. Through the toughest things, you start growing. You start accelerating. Now, one of my teachers, Dr. Segu Ramesh, he always says, if we can create, we can decreate. If we can lose our way, we can find our way. If we can fail, we can succeed. We do have that ability in ourselves. So there is no point to be in misery for failure. Instead, you should be celebrating and learning from failures. Let's go back a bit to Charles Darwin, the father of evolution. Now, many people associate his work to survival of the fittest, which is absolutely true. But very few of us are taught in his years, he said it was not about survival of the fittest. It was about kindness. It was about compassion. This is what makes humans grow. Not survival of the fittest, but compassion. And if you look at Stanford Medicine, they have their own department on compassion. Imagine the amount of time, resources, and money spent on that. This is a medical college spending money on compassion. That says a lot about compassion. Again, you've got these two people, Andrew Newberg and Mark Robert Waldman. They go around Fortune 500 companies and they do workshops, not on business communication, not on effective communication, not on relationship communication, but compassionate communication. So compassion plays a great part in how you turn that failure into a celebration. Now, 3 things happen. So if you start going into this state of compassion, you're able to carry out 3 things. In fact, there's 6, but because of the time, I'm going to focus on 3. The first thing is you start learning how to clean your BS. And when I say BS, I mean your belief system. So you start cleaning that up. Now, you could go into the intellect and decide that you want to clean your BS, but it gets very tough. So this is where emotional wisdom comes into play. And people who are intellect find it very difficult to go towards the emotional wisdom side of things. There's one particular exercise which I came across, which comes from Hawaii, delivered by a Dr. Hewlin, and it's called Ho'oponopono. That's Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono. And all it says, doesn't matter what the situation, you only need to say 4 statements. Now, your intellect might not connect to it, but when you say these 4 statements, and there's enough evidence and research done, miracles start happening. And those 4 statements is, and you say this inside yourself, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. So that's, I love you, please forgive me, thank you, I'm sorry. So 4 statements which you need to say to yourself. So you clean your BS. Now, when you do that, here's the next thing which happens. You get into this state called Ikigai. Now, Ikigai, a lot of people say it's about purpose. It's beyond purpose. It allows, so when you have got that state of compassion, you've cleaned your BS, it allows you to get inspirational. And when you're inspirational, you just take the necessary actions you need to do in whatever you want to do. So you get into a state of Ikigai. It's more than purpose. You find out what is really important to you. And finally, the third thing which you start realizing is row your boat. So there's a nursery rhyme which goes, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but just a dream. So it's not about rowing someone else's boat, i.e. not leading someone else. How about leading yourself? So when you're in that state of compassion, you start cleaning your BS, you get into Ikigai, and you start rowing your own boat, you start realizing you can celebrate failures because failures are just learnings. Thank you very much.